today's story is about Hawaii, a place that's now known for more than just being a great place for me to get a tattoo on vacation. Now it's known for being the first state in the damn union to have a really compelling answer to getting around Citizens United, which is something I've talked about a lot in the stream, but I'll give you a brief primer. Citizens United, it's a 5-4, extremely close Supreme Court ruling from back in 2010 that basically ruled that corporate money is free speech. It's protected under free speech. That corporations are just groups of people and people have free speech. So therefore, we cannot limit in any way the ability of corporations to spend money on elections. Mitt Romney said it best at the time.
Corporations are people, my friend.
And that sounded really good. But then it turns out there were some negative knock-on effects that once we made this possible, the amount of billionaire spending in presidential elections went parabolic. Once the chains were off, after this line in 2010, the amount of spending got absurd. And independent global organizations that track the health of democracies noted that after this ruling, the United States fell from a top tier 8.2 plus democracy to a flawed democracy, falling a number of points on the ranking system. Because there's just way more money and influence in politics than there ever was before, largely from multinational corporations. And an interesting problem, especially, and there's a lot of problems with this, but one of the interesting ones is that we still have laws that say foreign countries and foreign agents cannot spend money on our elections. And yet, we allow multinational companies to do it. And when you think that through, it doesn't make any sense. Many of these companies have deep economic ties outside of the country and interests outside of the country, and yet can spend completely freely in our elections. They can have strong influence. I'm gonna give you an example of a company that I like that still does this as a cost of doing business. Honda is a company I like. I just picked a random company on this chart. Honda is a Japanese car company. They're not even particularly political, bro. They're just a car company that wants to sell cars in America. But even they, if you look into it, spend millions a year on lobbying. And they do it through Honda North America, which suddenly makes it legal. But think about it, like, you're like, there's a rule, no Japanese agents can spend in our elections. But then it's like, oh, but Honda America, which has no economic ties to Honda Motor Co. Japan, it's like such an obvious loophole. And you look into it, and like, this is not even an egregious company. Honda's not even like a bad offender. But it's like, these are all the bills they're lobbying on. American Innovation and Jobs Act, American Privacy Right Act, Repair Act, Sharing the Savings with Seniors Act. These are all things that Honda is weighing in on and spending money to influence politicians on. And like, should they? Is that good for our society that these, the most powerful corporations with interests largely outside of the country, are having very impactful legislative changes on these important rules? Probably not. And so this concept is called sort of dark money, where you can't track where the money comes from. In this case with Honda, you can, but often wealthy people or foreign agents will create a like 501c nonprofit corporation registered in America. It doesn't list who it owns it. And then that invests. And it's like, this could be anybody. This could be anyone from all over the world. And we don't track this dark money. And it leads to a lot of money being spent in America to elect and defeat candidates or to shape policies. And it's generally, obviously, been bad. The health of America's democracy has severely weakened since Citizens United. And most people agree with this. Most state governments agree with this. But they've had no way of getting around it because we have a power scaling law in the judicial system. The Supreme Court is Charizard, and state level is at best Charmeleon. No matter what they say, they get overruled by the Supreme Court. They can't, it doesn't matter. And I'm not being like facetious here. This has exactly happened. And here's an example. Let's go with Montana. Montana is a corporation. Might as well be. They'll have more of a voice if they were. Montana is a state that has a long history of corporations spending to influence their elections, like going way back. So back in 1912, 100 years ago, Montana was gripped by the copper mining corporate. There's a copper wars. There were copper wars in Montana of these big copper conglomerates that would spend tons of money to buy judges, control newspapers, and bribe lawmakers. And so in 1912, they said, finally, we have to fucking get a hand of this. And so they created a new law that banned corporate money in elections. That was in 1912 they solved this problem. This law lasted over 100 years and was considered broadly a success. It worked for literally a century. And then, after Citizens United, the Supreme Court struck it down. With this fucking shit-eating grin. They were like, too bad. Doesn't matter, you've had this law forever. Citizens United supersedes it. So no state, no matter how entrenched, no matter how long they've had their law, has been able to overcome Citizens United and get money out of politics. And because of that, we've ended up with $4 billion spent every year influencing our elections, $2 billion of which is dark money that you literally can't track where it comes from. Now, enter Hawaii. As of this month, Hawaii has proposed a new, you could call it almost a legal loophole, a way of getting with, it doesn't undermine the Supreme Court's authority. It doesn't change Citizens United, but it's a way around it to prevent corporations from spending money in Hawaii. And I want to watch this video to help explain it a little bit better.
To whom does this democracy, whose 250th anniversary we are celebrating this year, to whom does this democracy actually belong? Same question raised earlier this month by the Hawaiian Republican State Representative Kanani Souza as she opened the floor debate on a bill that affected...
Worth saying, this bill is bipartisan. Republicans and Democrats in Hawaii have both supported it strongly. Get the money out of politics.
...bans corporate spending on elections in her state.
Hawaii is not waiting for permission, not following the lead of others. We are leading. We are making history by restoring a fundamental truth. Power belongs to people, not corporations. For too long, we have lived with a legal fiction that a corporation can stand shoulder to shoulder with a human being in the political arena, that it can spend without limit, influence without accountability, and project a voice so powerful that it overwhelms the very people our Constitution was written to protect. But here in Hawaii, we are not bound to accept that outcome as inevitable.
It passed a bill into law with near unanimous bipartisan support that effectively bans corporations from spending money to influence state elections. And it did this by redefining what powers a corporation actually has to take on...
This is going to be challenged, by the way, just to be clear. There's going to be a lot of fights over this, but it does pass legal muster of not upturning Citizens United.
Citizens United asked whether the government could regulate a corporation's right to spend money in elections. The court said no, it could not. But the Supreme Court was never asked, nor did it ask, a different, more fundamental question. Does a corporation have the power, not the right, the power to spend money on elections in the first place? And that question, it turns out, belongs entirely to the states.
It seems like a small distinction, but it's moving it upstream. And basically what it's saying is you can still, of course, abide by Citizens United and spend what you want. But if you do that, Hawaii will not grant your corporation charter in its state. It will not allow you to do business there. So you can theoretically still do it, but you can't operate in Hawaii. And so because Hawaii has total control of their ability to grant corporate charter, they're just making it a prerequisite. And it moves it upstream from what Citizens United covers. And also, it doesn't violate the Commerce Clause, because the Commerce Clause basically says that states can't make undue difficulties for businesses crossing state lines. But because Hawaii's law applies to all groups inside Hawaii or outside of Hawaii that want to do business there, it doesn't violate the Commerce Clause. So it's like everything is within the letter of the law. I mean, it's still argued, it's still arguable, but it's a fact that like people that really, really want this within states are able to push for it in a way that is legal and could move forward. I mean, it's been signed into law now.
Unlike humans who are actually born, corporations are created by state law. They are given their powers by state law. They are dependent on state law for their very existence, which is why people choose to incorporate in various different states based on the rights that that state offers. Chief Justice John Marshall established this principle in 1819, writing that, quote, a corporation is an artificial being, invisible, intangible, and existing only in contemplation of law. Being the mere creature of law, it possesses only those properties which the charter of its creation confers upon it.
Yeah.
End quote. In other words, corporations only exist because states created them and gave them their powers, things like the right to own property, to sign contracts, to sue, and to be sued. That 200-year-old Supreme Court decision has never been superseded. So Tom Moore's strategy, he calls it the corporate power reset, builds directly on this concept. States grant corporations their power. States have always retained the authority to rewrite that list. So instead of trying to restrict corporate speech, which is where Citizens United dwells and where states have lost repeatedly in federal court, Hawaii simply decided that it will decline to grant corporations that power in the first place.
Yeah.
It does not eliminate super PACs, but it cuts off their most corrosive fuel source, anonymous corporate money.
Yeah.
Super PACs can still operate, but only on money raised from human beings whose names must be disclosed.
Yeah.
State Senator Rhodes noted that...
I mean, a huge part of it is the disclosure part. A huge part is the ability to make sure you know where the political money is coming from. I mean, even right now, under current laws, it's already being flouted. Like, one part of the super PAC system is that they're supposed to not be allowed to work hand in hand with the actual politician. It has to be separate. You can spend the money you want, but you can't be coordinating with them. But they all do. So many of them are directly coordinating with the campaign that they're supporting, which is not allowed, but it's unenforceable. So the system it currently doesn't even work as intended, let alone blocking any attempt to fix it.
If a corporation in Hawaii violates the new law, the consequences are really serious. Loss of tax privileges, suspension of the right to sell products to the state government, potentially the loss of the right to do business in Hawaii altogether.
Yeah, that's the cool part. It's like if you're incorporated in Delaware and you want to spend money in Hawaii, I mean, you can do it, but you will not be able to do business in Hawaii. You won't be able to operate as a business there. And it's got real teeth without upending their ability to do what they want if they choose to cross that line. And if a bunch of states do this, it could have a truly serious impact. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's good. I think it's good to see people taking some progress into their own hands and recognizing that this has not worked. Like, it just hasn't worked. Whatever the arguments for and against it, it hasn't played out well. We are clearly seeing a deterioration in the ability of an average person's will of their vote to reach politicians.
The Hawaii Attorney General opposed the bill, by the way, warning that it would face immediate legal challenges, and she's probably right. But legal experts like Avian Soifer, the former dean of the University of Hawaii's law school, studied the measure closely and wrote to Governor Green, noting that, quote, states have exercised such authority for over 2 centuries, and the U.S. Supreme Court has affirmed this state authority repeatedly. And even skeptical legal voices acknowledge that there is something genuinely new here. University of Pennsylvania business law professor Jill Fish told The Atlantic that it's, quote, novel enough that it's hard to predict how a conservative court would react.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think a creative part of it is for a right-leaning Supreme Court, it's a battle between corporate money, but also states' rights, which they also really value. It's like you either have to do you have to put down a law that like undermines states' rights and like undoes a lot of other precedents, which is a risky route to go on, especially if they were worried about federal gun laws in the future, from a different political group being in power. It's pretty interesting. What does Trump think? I'm not sure Trump's even aware of this, bro. Trump's not even going to his own son's wedding, bro. He's in a fucking mess with Iran, dude.
And Hawaii is not going to be alone for long in Montana.
So many problems we have are problems we've had in the past and had to deal with all the struggles and then solve. And we just like waited 80, 100 years and then undid them. Like, these are lessons we already learned, and then we're just fucking relearning them. Of course, you can't allow corporations with adverse interests to buy politicians and spend money on politics. Of course, it's just an obvious thing. We've learned it before.
If states as large as California...
Sports gambling is the same thing. Yeah, dude. It's like we're just in real time relearning. Oh yeah, gambling is causing a lot more addicts, and it's causing a lot of people to cheat. Yeah, of course. It's obvious.
We're living through a moment when the concentration of wealth and power in American political life has reached levels that alarm most Americans, regardless of party affiliation.
1920s
Citizens United played a central role in that, opening the floodgates for dark money, for anonymous corporate spending, for the kind of influence that makes ordinary voters feel correctly that their voices matter less.
Yeah, anyway, interesting video. I definitely think, I'm definitely hopeful for what Hawaii's going to do here. I'm excited to see how it plays out. Definitely lend your voice if you're in Hawaii or in one of the 13 states that are adopting similar measures.